Sir Richard's hard to get out where you're concerned. I mean, I've often wondered whether that knighthood, rests easily with you. Most unexpected.
Yes, I think the Queen was very kind in giving me the knighthood. Obviously, since 25 years before I got the knighthood, I'd released the Sex Pistols music, and God Save the Queen was slightly controversial. So
God Save the Queen.
Yeah,
at her fascist.
So I was when she came down with that sword, I thought, she's going to slice my head off, isn't she? But
it's almost a microcosm of your life, isn't it? I was going through the notes about yourself, and there's plenty of them. I mean, I heard about probably 9 million descriptions of Richard Branson. I just wondered which ones you agreed to. Everyone's favourite wacky billionaire and counterculture tycoon. Dyslexic, gut risk capitalist. I like that one very much. From tax evader to UN Citizen of the Year. I mean, how do you feel when you find journalists going off the way they do, either with pen or with fingers or with the mouth, about the kind of person you are? Do you recognise yourself? I think
the journalists have been pretty fair with me over the years, and I can't complain. I mean, I think we've built hopefully one of the most respected brands in the world, and I think I've been treated fairly. Obviously, there are occasions when people will write things I don't like, and I normally shoot off a letter and get it off my chest, and then move on. I've never sued anybody yet, although there'll be one or two occasions I wanted to strangle one or two people. But
this dyslexia thing is interesting because a friend of yours, I think probably your closest business associate, your lieutenant in fact, said that yes, he's educationally dyslexic and uses his gut, which is why he's been able to do what he's done, because he does things other people wouldn't even dream of doing. Is that Richard Branson, the businessman, in a nutshell?
Yes, I mean, being dyslexic, you just have to do things perhaps differently than a normal business person, and I rely much more on gut feeling than I suspect most business people. I mean, for instance, if I'm starting a new business, I don't bring in the accountants. I mean, I just decide, that this particular business is being run dreadfully by other people, and I feel I can do it better. And if I can do it better and create something really special, hopefully we'll be able to pay the bills at the end of it.
Yeah. It's a long and varied and exciting journey to go from literally selling records out of the boot of the car to space travel. Is the most ridiculous extreme that I could think of.
Yes, I mean, I have had a varied life, and it's still
never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. I've dreamt of going into space ever since the moon landing.
Is that right?
And as I suspect, anybody of our generation who saw people landing on the moon must have thought, maybe one day I'm going to be able to do that.
I guess a lot of people see you as a bit of a space cadet anyway.
And I'm a bit up there anyway. So.
There's a wonderful quote that I found from you where you said, when I was younger, we had virgin nightclubs. Now we have virgin health clubs. I guess virgin funerals are inevitable.
All I can promise is they'll be fun. No, I think it's important to go into areas that interest you personally, and as you grow older, you're apt to, go start businesses and do things that reflect your age in life and your own experiences. I mean, I'm just launching health clubs in Australia.
Having put
on a stone or two recently.
Where do I join?
I need them. So, whereas I would never have thought of doing health clubs as a teenager.
This description is mine, and because I think if we get vaguely serious for a moment, do you see yourself as a philanthropist, a la George Soros, for instance, or just a capitalist who's got more money than he needs, and therefore has become something of one of the world's richest do-gooders?
No, I mean, about 60-70% of my time now is spent on tackling social issues around the world, and I actually think it's a responsibility of any capitalist to turn their attention once they've made enough money to using their entrepreneurial skills to tackle some of the intractable problems of the world, and I get enormous satisfaction from doing that, and I think I think that entrepreneurs can do it perhaps sometimes better than than people who say from the social sector who don't have those entrepreneurial skills.
Yeah. So I suppose you could describe Richard Branson, therefore, as a not so filthy rich capitalist. Is that?
I think that the thing about capitalism is that it's an evil necessity capitalism. Communism has been tried and failed, and socialism that doesn't work very well. Capitalism works, but the problem about capitalism is it does mean that a few individuals become very wealthy, and therefore I think those individuals have enormous responsibility to redistribute that wealth, either by creating new businesses and creating new jobs, and making sure that money doesn't lie in a bank account, for future generations.
So, how do you pick and choose? How do you pick and choose which issues you get involved in, which intractable problems, as you describe them, do you throw your money at? Is that, do you use your gut again, or do you use your mind, your heart, or what?
I think it's just from traveling the world and experiencing things firsthand. I mean, I've been in Africa, and I've been to the hospitals of Africa, and they're not hospitals, they're places where people go to die, and rows and rows and rows of people just dying. And then, the waiting rooms of the hospitals are full of people waiting to go into the beds of the people who've died the night before. I mean, and they're dying from unnecessary diseases. We're setting up a war room for Africa to coordinate the 100,000 excellent organisations that are trying to tackle those problems, but there's no coordination. I mean, there's just lots of little organisations doing their own thing.
What about climate change? Because you were a climate change sceptic, as I understand it, and now, as a result of probably the influence of people like Al Gore and our own Tim Flannery, you're now a true believer. I mean, where do you stop spending money where that sort of intractable, almost impossible to solve problem is concerned? Well,
as you say, I mean, people like Tim Flannery and Al Gore and others have influenced me enormously, and I've also just gone out and read a lot about it, and I've been to the Arctic, I've seen firsthand what's happening, and so on, and a lot of our time and energy is now being put into trying to tackle this problem. Once again, there is no coordination. I mean, James Lovelock has fantastic ideas as to how climate change can be tackled, but though he's 90 years old, those ideas are going to be lost. Tim Flannery has great ideas. There are great ideas all over the world, but there's no coordination of those ideas. If global warming is the threat that all these people believe it to be, if it's a greater threat than World War I and World War II, put together, then once again you need a war room. You need an environmental war room on this occasion. You need the attack on carbon, which is the enemy, to be coordinated. And so we are actually in the process of setting up a global environmental war room to tackle this problem.
Earth Challenge and the 25 million a year that you're putting into somebody coming up with an idea.
I mean, the Virgin Earth Challenge is a specific challenge to try to get scientists and inventors to see whether they can come up with a way of extracting carbon out of the Earth's atmosphere. Yeah. If we could do that, we could actually regulate the Earth's temperature. We could most likely try to keep it at roughly what it is today, indefinitely. So we've had some thousands of people who've submitted ideas, but it's unlikely that there will be a silver bullet there. I mean, we're obviously hoping for it.
You have your detractors, needless to say, and there are those who say, well, symbolically at least, why don't you stop flying planes in the air? That you've got a pretty big carbon footprint yourself.
Well, we have a very big carbon footprint. In fact, just announced another airline yesterday flying between Australia and Los Angeles. So
but how do you reconcile that?
If I sold our airlines and somebody else would fly the routes, or if we closed our airlines, somebody else would step into it.
It's less environmentally friendly.
And what we have pledged is that 100% of all the profits we make from all our airline interests worldwide for the next 10 years will be spent on trying to develop clean fuels. Clean fuels for planes, clean fuels for lorries, buses, trains, dirty ships, etc. And for instance, about a month or so ago, we proved that a plane could be flown on a biofuel. Now we need to develop a biofuel that will not damage the food supply chain.
That's interesting, because that's become a debate, hasn't it?
Yes, I mean, it's right that it is debated, and I think that a fuel like algae, can be grown in the future that needn't eat into the food supply at all. And so that's the kind of area that we're working on.
Could I ask you this? You've had to deal with politicians and politics and the like as a businessman and as an activist for all these various causes that you're involved in, like the elders, for instance. What do you think's more powerful, wealth or politics? What's a more powerful influence on the state of the world, for good or bad?
I don't think it's one or the other. I think that entrepreneurs are apt not to become politicians, and I think entrepreneurs have a role to play.
Ever considered politics yourself?
I haven't, because I left school at 15, and I feel going back into the political system would be a bit like going back to school. I've run away from it. But having said that, there are areas of what I do today which are quite political. Obviously the elders in particular is very political.
Right. So you would expect then that the elders would get involved in areas where you've not really trodden before, like the Middle East and like Iraq and Iran, etc.
Yes, the elders were formed about a year ago. Nelson Mandela chose the first 12 elders, and the idea was to find the 12 most respected people in the world who were above ego, maybe in the last 10 years of their life, who had tremendous moral authority, who had the respect of the world, who could take on intractable problems that were not being dealt with by other people. And so, for instance, two of the elders went to Kenya last month, where Kofi Annan and Graça Machel, Nelson Mandela's wife, to try to resolve a really nasty conflict between the opposition party and the ruling party, and they managed to knock heads together and sort that problem out. They're now looking at taking on a far bigger issue, which is the Middle East, because if the Middle East is not resolved, there's just so much fallout from it. So it's got to be resolved one day. I come from a country where Northern Ireland looked like it was never going to be resolved. It has been resolved, and so Kofi Annan, who's one of the elders, and Mary Robinson, and President Carter, the three of the elders, are going to spend a lot of time and energy trying to address that. So you've become not a politician but a political facilitator. Yes, I'm very much behind the scenes on the elders, and we've helped. It was an idea that Peter Gabriel and myself had. We've got a great team of people behind the elders to make sure that they can act completely independently, and they can hopefully do a good work. So, before the Iraqi war, I was trying to get Mandela to go and persuade Saddam Hussein to step down and go and live in Libya, and the plane was due to go to Iraq the same day the bombing started. So right? It never actually took place. Right. We'll never know what would have happened had people bothered to sit down and talk to him or try. We will never know. But there are other situations in the world where Idi Amin, for instance, in Uganda, elders went and persuaded him to go and live in Saudi Arabia for the rest of his life, and Uganda's become a good democratic country since then. And so. It's important people talk. Talking to you like this, it sounds to me like you're the sort of person who believes that, if your intentions are honourable enough, and you've got enough money, in your case, we shouldn't believe anything is impossible. I personally don't believe anything's impossible. I think that with enough determination and effort, almost everything is possible. we'll have to see whether it's possible with global warming. But I think with enough coordination, with real determination, we ought to be able to get on top of it. We'd be very, very sad to see this beautiful world we live in destroyed by ourselves and unnecessarily destroyed.
Lovely talking to you.
Nice to see you too.
Enjoy the rest of your stay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Great.